Alright guys, in this video I'm going to show you how to do the what's in the word assignment, or in other words, to make something that looks just like this in Photoshop. Or not just like it, but kind of like it. Similar concept. I'm going to close this and we'll start over from the very beginning. I've already got an image opened. You're going to pick and already have an image that you're going to want to work on. This will be an image you took here in class for this assignment. So first thing I need to do is pay attention to whether or not this image is a horizontal or a vertical. This image is horizontal. So I'm going to remember that. I'm going to go to File, New. Because mine is a horizontal, I'm going to do 10 for the width and 8 for the height. If yours was a vertical, you would do 8 for the width and 10 for the height. So you just switch those. But mine's a horizontal. You can also just click this little button if you have the right numbers in there. Anyways, I'm going to go 10, 8, 300 is my resolution that I want. And I'm going to go ahead and click on Create. All right, I got my canvas opened up. I'm going to grab my text tool, make sure I'm on the horizontal type tool. Don't worry about setting these settings up here until after you've clicked. If you change them and then you click down here, they won't stick. Also, you guys are used to clicking and dragging a box to type. This really only makes sense if you're going to be typing a paragraph. We're not. We're actually only going to be typing one word, maybe two at the most. So instead of clicking, dragging a box, I'm just going to click right here in the middle of my canvas and use that. I'm then going to come up and choose a nice big bold font. I really like Impact for this assignment. You can choose something different. However, really thin, squirrely fonts like this one won't really work. They're just too thin. They don't have enough depth to them. So Impact is probably a better choice. Let me switch back to that. And then you're going to type the one word that works for your assignment. You're going to do it in all caps. The color doesn't really matter. Just make sure you can see it. Remember, if you're typing with white on white, you obviously won't be able to see it. And the size, none of that really matters as long as you can see it. And I just need to tell Photoshop that I'm done typing. To do that, I can either click on this button right here, or I can press the Enter key over by the numbers on my keyboard. You do need to tell Photoshop you're done typing. You can't move on and do the next step until you have finished your typing by either pressing that Enter key or the check mark up here. At this point, I'm going to press Control-T, and I'm going to resize my text. Good news with text, you do not have to hold down Shift and drag from the corner. It might look better if you do, but you certainly don't have to. It's not like a photo, or if you stretch it out, it's going to look totally ridiculous. So I'm going to just make my text nice and big and have it fill up my whole canvas just like that. And again, press Enter to tell Photoshop that you're done with that. I'm going to go now back to my picture, my photograph of the ocean, and I'm going to grab the Move tool, and I'm going to use that to move it over to the text. Do not move the text to the image, move the image to the text. And you can see mine's too big. Yours might be too big or too small. You might have all kinds of issues there. Don't worry about that yet. We will fix that here in just a minute. So your layers palette should look like this. You should have an image, a text layer, and a background layer. So I'm going to right click on my layer 1, my image layer, and I'm going to choose Create Clipping Mask. You can see what that does is that makes the text so it only shows up, or the photo so that it only shows up through the text. Notice these are still separate layers, which means I can Control-T my image, and I can come in here and make it smaller or bigger if I needed to. Of course, because this is a picture, I am going to hold down Shift and drag from the corner. My text is also still its own layer, which means I can edit it. So let me switch back to my text tool and see those little dots around my cursor. If you want to edit your text, you have to move it close to the text until those dots go away, at which point you can now select your text, and maybe I want to actually change mine to waves instead of ocean. And that's okay. Again, just press the Enter key by the numbers to tell Photoshop that you're done typing. At this point, we just need to add a couple of cool effects to make our image look a little bit better. So with my text layer selected, I'm going to come down here to the bottom of my layers palette and choose the FX button. You don't need to know what all these are. All you need to know is that you can have some fun playing around with them and just kind of do whatever you want. Let's start by throwing a bevel emboss. Again, don't feel like you have to do this. I'm just showing you an example of what you can do. You can use any of these you want. Some of them will be a little bit weird. For example, if you do a color overlay, you'll lose your image. But what about this? If I come and change this opacity down, my image starts to show up back through. So none of these will ruin your photograph, but some of them you might have to experiment with to make it so it doesn't look too weird. And feel free to just play around with these. If I go back to bevel and emboss, look at all these options I have. Play around with all of them. Just see what happens as you explore. I want you to do at least 3 of these for this assignment. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK on that. And then just one last thing I want to do. Make sure that you're on your text layer and that you have the text tool selected. If you don't have the text tool selected, this option won't be there. I'm going to come up here to the top of my screen and click on this little dude right here. It's the text with the little frowny face underneath it. And I'm just going to choose a style here. As you can see, there are lots of styles here as well. And then, of course, once I click on fish, I have some options that I can play around with as well. I could play with the bend and the horizontal distortion and the vertical distortion. Maybe I don't want fish. Maybe I want a bulge. And I could bring that back up and play around with that. So play around with those and get yourself something that looks how you want it. And then when you're done, you just hit OK. And then we're done. All you got to do is save it as a JPEG and upload it to Flickr and turn it in on Canvas.